Welcome to today's Daily Thought, where we consider the fourth of our reflections on Jesus' final words from the cross. And today we're thinking about a shout of triumph. We read in John chapter 19, verses 28 to 30, that later, knowing that everything had now been finished, and so that scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge in a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. At this point, Jesus has been on the cross for 6 hours. These really are some of his final words. And verse 28 says that Jesus knew that everything had now been finished. And after he had been given some drink lifted up to him on a sponge attached to a branch, Jesus said, "It is finished." But what we need to understand is that this is not the whimper of defeat, of Jesus resigning himself to the fact that he is about to breathe his last, that he's about to die, that it's over. But this is a cry of triumph. In Mark chapter 15, in verse 37, we read that Jesus uttered a loud cry and then breathed his last. And this is perhaps the loud cry that Mark is referring to, these words, "It is finished." In fact, in the original Greek of the New Testament, it is but one word. That word is finished, Jesus cries. And what's going on here is that it's not so much Jesus' life that is finished, but his work, his mission. Only a few chapters earlier, in John chapter 17, Jesus said this of his Father, or to his Father, "I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do." And what was that work? It was to save sinners. It was to redeem and to reconcile lost men and women back to God. And that mission involved his sacrifice upon the cross, dying in the place of sinners, as we thought yesterday, bearing the darkness of God's judgment upon himself. And now, as Jesus offers himself on the cross, he can say, "It is finished." It is the cry of satisfaction, of a job done, mission accomplished, we might say. Drawing out the significance of Jesus' death later on in the New Testament, in the letter to the Hebrews, it says this, that when this priest had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. Have you ever had an important job to do and it's taken you all day, and then finally at the end of the day you can put down your tools and you can sit down, knowing that the job is done, the job is finished, with that sense of satisfaction? And this is how we're to understand the work of Jesus on the cross, and this cry that he makes from the cross, not as tragedy, but as triumph, to see Jesus not as a victim, but as a victor. And that has huge consequences for us as we ask the question, how might I be saved? How can I find forgiveness with God? And the answer is not, well, do this and do that. The answer is done. It's not about what you can do, but it's about what Christ has done. It's not about what you can achieve, but what Christ has accomplished. It's not your works for him, but his work for you. That's what you're to look to. That's what you're to trust in. And so we thank God for the work of salvation that has been completed, that has been accomplished, that has been done, that has been finished. Amen.